All right, I think we'll get started. So, thank you all very much for returning, and we hope you enjoyed the coffee and croissant, and do feel prepared for the next session. Would like to welcome everybody back online as well, and hope that you enjoy this next session. This next session is titled Industry Pioneers Shaping a Future with openBIM, and it will be chaired and hosted by Marie Grieve from Costello Palmer Communications. So over to you, Marie.
Thank you, Aidan. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today, and certainly thank you for the invitation from buildingSMART. I'm Marie Grieve, and we're about to welcome to the plenary session our lovely panel of female industry experts in BIM and openBIM standards, and we're about to talk about how digital has transformed the whole asset lifecycle information management process. Now that's a mouthful. So what I'm hoping is that our ladies will explain that in far more simple terms than I have. I'm standing here before you as the Managing Director for Costello Palmer Communications, and I specifically work with clients within the digital built environment. And my role as a marketer, not as a digital construction expert, is to tell people stories about BIM, openBIM, about standards, about how the world is changing due to the fact of how we actually design and build. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce our panel one by one. What's going to happen over the next hour and a half is each of our panel members will give a short presentation in their own area of expertise, but also linking into that whole asset lifecycle management and how data plays a really important part to that, and how smart we are with using our data to be more collaborative. And after they've done their short presentations, we're going to have a lovely discussion where I'll be asking each of them, or maybe grilling each of them, on what they've just told us and how else we can actually give more information to you to share to enable you to have key takeaways from today so that you can put them into practice in your own businesses as well. So I'd like to introduce one by one, beginning with, now who do we have here? You can stay seated for a second. Anna Moreno, who most of you, I'm sure, will know because she is International Board Director and founder of buildingSMART Italy. So welcome to Anna. Next, we have Céline Bent, who is the Compliance Director of buildingSMART International. Followed by Céline, we have Anna Riitta, who's the company owner at ARC Consulting in Finland. We also have Emma Hooper, who's Associate Director from Bond Bryan Digital. Followed by Arisca Droog, who's a data engineer at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. Then we have Xenia Fiorentini, who's the co-founder of Engis. And we also have finally, who's really, I'd like to welcome and thank you for her being here today because it's the very last minute. Ada Fung, who's the chairperson of the Hong Kong buildingSMART chapter. So Anna, if you'd like to start with our presentations, thank you.
Thank you. Just very brief introduction about myself. I was a researcher for 38 years, and then 8 years ago, I founded the BIMI that 4 years ago became the buildingSMART chapter. Let me first start with explaining why a panel with only women. Because as Patrick said, we needed to help United Nations. And United Nations, the General Secretary Antonio Guterres said that we urge to involve more women because we can all benefit from their groundbreaking future contribution. And also, the reason why I really wanted this here in Italy is because this is a statistic that was produced recently in Europe. And we found that only 13% of the women work in the technological area in Sweden, which is the highest percentage, while Italy is at the lowest percentage. We are only 4%. But we are in a community where we do not have any problem to show our competencies. And here is every time we take pictures of the women working within the buildingSMART community. So it's not that I claim a role. What I want is to have to convince through our panelists more women and girls to join the technical community, because we need a lot of intelligence to go forward with our program. So now I start with a very brief presentation from how we promoted this chapter. I was remembering with Xenia that she is also a founder together with Lorenzo. We were only 6 people when we started, and we started as a learning community. What is a learning community? Is we need to have a role of leading, so inspiring people, supporting people with our activities, and improving, promoting the learning activity. This is our learning community. There are 146 men and 45 professional women, and the tiny shape there is the 4%, which is Italy. So we are a little better than the average in Italy. We have collective members, 64, university, research center, and software houses and infrastructure companies. These are our numbers. So we produce 15 guidelines, and we have almost 400 people qualified, and we won quite a few awards. Our resources, we have from one side the fee members, but also contracts, and it's now managed by 1 employee full-time, 5 employee, and 1 full-time or voluntary, but that is me. Why the last point that I want to make is that I believe strongly in the support that European projects can do to our community, but also to the international community. What we look into the project is the opportunities to go forward, not only with the European strategy, but also with our strategy. From these projects, we have deliverables that fit into our programs so that everybody from our community can benefit. And we are sharing, last night we were speaking about some other European chapter that we can share among us so that there is an exploitation through our chapter in all Europe, but hopefully in all at international level. Finally, I think that we are not realizing it. We are living in the metaphor of the boiling frog. That is, our planet is really in danger because we are in a place that every day we realize how is what the climate change is doing to our planet. And we cannot lose the possibility to fight against the climate change with both women and men. So I hope that in the future we will be almost 50%, but not because of equal opportunity, but because we need different perspective, and women and men are different. So we need to join all our effort for our planet. Thank you.
Here we go. Hello, everyone. Our CEO, Clive, just showed this image behind me while he was explaining the strategic roadmap for buildingSMART International. And I wanted to show it again because I think it shows really well why or that compliance is just as important as the technical side of buildingSMART. We need certification to realize the entire ecosystem. We need to make sure that processes work as expected and that people embrace it. Otherwise, it's pretty useless. But our compliance roadmap is less mature than our technical roadmap. And therefore, the next 2 years are hugely important. with professional certification, we aim to bring the majority of the workforce with a leapfrog from their current capabilities until a level where they really experience the benefits of automated or connections between applications. And next year, we will start with process certification, and together with professional certification, that will allow projects and companies and individuals to take the next leap and become part of an ecosystem where seamless integrated decision support is possible. But first, there's a lot of work for us to do on the human side. We have the professional certification program that has been running since 2018, and it has been steadily growing since then. It is currently run by 18 chapters, and 5 chapters are in the implementation phase of professional certification. You can see them here. We have already qualified over 18,000 people worldwide, and we have over 160 registered training providers. With regards to the market penetration, and this chart that I'm showing is corrected for the population, you can see that the Swiss, the Austrian, and the German chapter have been most successful, closely followed by the chapters of Hong Kong, Spain, and Italy. And there's the rest of the chapters. And we've learned from the chapters that have been struggling more with the implementation of the program that in some cases there is a lack of awareness of the existence of buildingSMART and the professional certification program. So their marketing could help. But we've also learned that for some less mature markets, the current course that we offer called Foundation can be too complicated. And from the more mature markets, we have learned that the current course that we offer is insufficient. So in order to respond to those needs, I'm happy to announce that this year we will launch Professional Certification 2.0. It consists of a whole new rebranding of the program. And we are introducing 4 different levels of certification for individuals. It starts with a free entry level training and exam, followed by foundation that we already offer, but we're going to improve it. So we're currently removing a lot of the content that is too technical and too theoretical. And we're focusing more on really the basic knowledge on openBIM. And we're adding a little bit more context and a focus on the benefits of openBIM. And then thirdly, we're now introducing 2 new, more advanced levels of training and certification. Firstly, the management level that focuses on project managers. And secondly, a more applied and practical course that focuses more on the technical aspects of openBIM called Practitioner. And I'm also very happy to announce that finally this training and certification will be available from this week in 3 of our largest markets, Germany, Austria, and Italy. And we're working very hard to make all these levels available for all the chapters of buildingSMART, so everybody can use them and implement them, because really, it's really clear that we want and we can significantly impact the sustainability of the built environment with openBIM, but that will only happen if the majority of the workforce uses it. And I'm not talking only about our technical community, but the entire world, hopefully. So thank you.
I'm waiting for my slides to come. But hello, and so honored to be here today. I'm a long-time BIM, openBIM influencer. I have been over 20 years involving with BIM. And in Finland, it means IFC and openBIM. And also, of course, the buildingSMART network is very familiar to me in Finland and in globally. And I'm proud that I can be here also for buildingSMART influencer. I'm engineer backgrounded. And I chosen here because I'm so many different kind of segments in the BIM involving and in national level and in the project level also. So I chosen to be 2 passion areas that I have in openBIM. And first one is this BIM-based building permit issues. And I have been involving so many projects in that in Finland. And as you have said that here in Rome, this was not built in one day. We haven't built this leading BIM-based building process in Finland for one day. We have had so many years and so many projects that we have been working on with that. And now, today, I can show you this list and be proud that we have done this. And I will tell you more about this, the latest one, this Rava 3 project that I'm a project manager via my own company, and you will hear more about that and more about our new building law that we are going to have and the BIM law that is going to support us to do more openBIM for that segment also. But another one, I'm also involving in Accord project with the VDT team, and it's also involving with digital building permit issues, and buildingSMART International is also involved with this. But the second one, the passion one, is the hospitals. I have been involved over 30 hospital and healthcare projects, and my part is not the usual part, the BIM coordinator part. I might say that I try to do every project miracles for the openBIM, that how can we make information via designing and openBIM IFCs for different kind of key participators in hospital project. And in Finland, it's very normal that every hospital project is the BIM project, and it's an openBIM project, and even nurses use the IFC. They can use even Solibri if they want. And how is it possible that I have so many project references that I have been involved with BIM and machine readable data and process and things like that? In Finland, we had this so big hospital reform that we have made nearly all of our biggest hospitals. You can see the map. Biggest hospitals and healthcare buildings, we have made the new ones because the old one was the old and they didn't serve the healthcare processes, and we did this massive healthcare reform, and I have been nearly all of these involved in somehow. And now my goal is that because we have so many experience in this, that BIM can solve the problems, openBIM can solve the problems. I am looking forward to the global aspect of the hospitals. And I can share, of course, my dreams in here. I have been dreaming about 5 years and doing this kind of networking that maybe someday we will have this hospital room or working group in buildingSMART International also, because I think that we need that kind of, there's so many issues that we can do and develop and at least discuss with the global network. I was also 2020 the founder and one of the organizer for the hospital BIM event, and it was COVID, so it was virtual event. But now I have another dream. We make this kind of hospital BIM event somewhere in the world and have all these key persons that are involved in the hospital project to discuss about the openBIM possibilities for the projects. And I have lots of slides, but you can have this afterwards. But I would like to say that in hospital project, the sustainable issues and the service designing issues, the functional designing, and all the making the better healthcare processes in there for every key persons and customer groups needs BIM and needs us and needs you. So that is my passion areas, and thank you.
Hi everyone. As well as my day job, I'm also Vice Chair of buildingSMART UK and Ireland, and involved in lots of other standards things, and that also includes the ISO 19650 guidance in the UK, which is what I'm going to present about today. Just waiting for my slides. Right, there we go. So, ISO 19650 is a suite of standards which are based on the old BS 1192 UK standards, and they very much concentrate on information management for the whole life of an asset. So let's start with the common title, which is about information management using building information modelling. So there's two important concepts here. So the first is information management, which is about the specification, delivery and governance of just the right amount of information concerning the design, operation and maintenance of buildings and infrastructure. And that's across all information, whether that's structured or unstructured. And then we have building information modelling, which is the process of managing the structured information within this wider information management framework. And if I was to visualise information management, I believe it would look like this. So first, we need to think about information across the whole of the asset's life and its impact on an organisation. This is both from an activity-based management layer, which people interact with, and then secondly, an information layer. And this is the layer which technology typically interacts with. And this gives you information management. So if we overlay some of the main standards, the ISO 19650 series generally is for the management side. And then in the depths of the information layer, there are many, and this includes the ones like GIS, CityGML, and all of these other ones shown. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking about these two layers and how they join up and how they both need to be considered for information management to work effectively. So if I was to sum up ISO 19650, it would be about delivering useful information, because we're terrible at this as an industry, and reducing risk, because when things go wrong in construction, it's generally something to do with information. And even though as an industry we're obsessed with risk, information risk is barely ever thought about. So it's essentially a framework for managing all types of information across these key streams: people, process, and technology. From a people perspective, the first thing to realise within the standards is that everything operates around appointments, not project work stages or gateways. Therefore, every appointment is on its own timeline. Appointments could be capital works project or appointments for other in-use trigger events. The main client of the project is the appointing party who's procuring the information, our information receiver, and then there is a lead appointed party who provides it. So therefore, as we go down the chain, when the lead appointed party selects the next tier, they become both provider and now receiver. But who actually carries out the role of information management? In the standards, it doesn't refer to a role. Instead, it refers to a single information management function. And this function is made up of all the different information management activities which need undertaking on projects. And these activities then get shared out to the most suitable people on a project. And this is to highlight the fact that information management isn't the responsibility of one person, one role, or one discipline. Anyone who provides or receives information has some responsibility towards it, and that's everyone. Now, from a process perspective, if we revisit the diagram and overlay some of the main activities, we have cycles of specify. So this is defining what information is needed. Then we have procure. So this is where suppliers are then selected based on their ability to deliver the required information, and the information requirements importantly go into contract. We have plan, and this is where the chosen supplier takes their needs and combines with the appointing parties to create a more granular information programme. And then we have deliver, and this is where the delivery team work together to coordinate the design. We have assure, which is very important. So the whole checking process where we check the delivered information against the original requirements. Then we have store, which is after handover. So the information gets stored within the appointing parties' systems. Then we have present. So this is where the information is visualized in a way it can be used for reporting process purposes. And then exploit. So this is where the information actually gets used within an organization. So ISO 19650 focuses on information models as the main deliverable at a project and asset level. An information model in the standards is a collection of alphanumerical, geometrical information and documentation, which is stored within a common data environment. And I'm going to talk about this a bit more tomorrow. So bringing this together, ISO 19650 is about the management of the design, construction and management of information models within the context of appointments. So where does technology fit in? Well, this is something which isn't directly mentioned in the standards, but it's crucial to understand that information should be defined independently of software in a standardized way. Therefore, technology should plug in where it needs to help create, store, and analyze information throughout. And I see it as the interface between people and the world of data. So just to sum up, there is so much more to ISO 19650, but hopefully that has given a general overview. It essentially provides a framework of activities to manage information exchanges, to design, build, and maintain information models in the context of appointments across the whole life of an asset. Thank you.
It's not coming. It's not working. There we go. Thank you for having me. My name is Arisca Droog. I'm going to start with a short introduction about myself before getting into what I do at Schiphol and what we're doing with openBIM. A little bit about me. I am Dutch. I live in a small town, Alkmaar. I actually lived in the United States for 11 years. And I am very much into sports. If you don't find me at work, I'm usually in the gym, probably throwing around some barbells. And I also do photography on the side. Work-wise, I work for Schiphol Airport as a data engineer for the asset management department, where I'm part of the information management team. And right now we're kind of working on developing and implementing a new digital environment where we have designed a new data model based on linked data. A little bit about me. Like I said, I lived in the US for 11 years. I moved there when I was 16 by myself, and I ended up working there, but also got my education. For buildingSMART, I've been a member since March 2019. So this, I think, is my 4th Live Summit. I'm part of the Airport Entities Working Group, and I am since 2023, since this year, co-chair of the Airport Room Steering Committee. And a few achievements of what I've done on a personal level, on a working level, and within the airport room. Funny story, as a kid, all the way up to high school, I was always told that I was very bad in math and that I should never consider a career in technology or in IT. And here I am today, so follow your dreams. At the same time, I, at Schiphol, was part of implementing the information delivery specification, or the manual, which was a big thing at the airport to actually start following some standards. And within buildingSMART, together with a great team, we reintroduced the Airport Entities Project. So before going into a little bit more detail, I think it's good and important to go over some facts of Schiphol Airport, because it explains a lot of the challenges that we are running into today. So in general, last year we had about 52 million passengers. We're open 24/7 a day, 24/7 every single day. And at the same time, we have a lot of projects going. So just within the terminal alone, each year we have over 1,000 projects delivering data, changing the environment. So it's a very complex environment where we get to work in And then at the same time, we're very old. We're over 100 years old. And one of the buildings, Terminal 1, was actually built in 1967. So you can imagine we have a lot of data, or we're actually missing a lot of data as well because it's so old and because of the changes in how we're working. At the same time, in 2019, we introduced a new digital environment where we started working object-oriented in order to improve our information exchange and our data structure. And we did so in order to make smarter decisions, in order to get more insights in our data so more people can make use of it. So Schiphol and openBIM. On the right side, you see our information strategy. If you've been here before and if you've seen presentations from myself or Maya, my coworker, it's been presented many of times. But the important thing is that we have asset lifecycle management. So we have a lot of stakeholders involved in the whole process of getting the data all the way around. So on the right side, we have the Schiphol environment, but on the left side, you see projects, and we have our main contractors that are responsible for maintaining our assets. So really the focus here is not so much the technique, because I do believe that the technique has proven itself that it works. However, if people are not following the guidelines and the rules of how they're supposed to work, we're never going to get good quality of data. So that's been really my challenge at the airport, stakeholder management and collaborating with the entire supply chain to work more efficiently. So what I've been doing is really translating the technique to the business and the business to the technique. So I'm starting to talk to asset owners and ask them what they need in order to get their work done, without getting too much into too much detail about the technique. And with that, we're trying to improve information management throughout that entire asset life cycle, because there are so many parties involved that need good data in order to do their job. So some of the challenges and opportunities that we are experience at the airport is the reuse of data throughout the entire asset lifecycle. Because we work in such a complex environment where we're constantly changing the asset environment, so our assets are constantly changing, moving, lots of projects. It's still very difficult to reuse all of the data throughout the asset lifecycle. So with that, we actually introduced a Schiphol data model, the Schiphol Data Dictionary, where we have defined our information needs throughout the entire asset lifecycle. So from design to project or to construction to maintaining. And with that, we have created a linking rule set to IFC and as well to other national and international standards. And at the same time, we have introduced Schiphol policy, openBIM, our information delivery manual, and our IM protocol, where we have defined our product and process requirements. However, because we still cannot reuse the data, we had to introduce some guidelines for how to work when we use Revit. Revit is primarily still being used within the Netherlands, or at least within Schiphol. So we have introduced some guidelines that are still based on openBIM. However, that's not ideal, so that's why I am here, part of buildingSMART, to think of solutions to work more open, to work more with openBIM. Like I said, I am now part of, or the co-chair of the Airport Room Steering Committee, together with Mika Costamo, who is not here today, unfortunately. And then with my coworker, Maya, we lead the Airport Entities Project with a really great team of people, really trying to think of how we can improve asset lifecycle management. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here. You know, I knew I would have been probably the last person, if not to talk today. So I spent quite some time thinking at what I could tell you that was still innovative and new to your ears. After all, my very competent colleagues already talked to you about openBIM. And I ended up choosing a personal topic. So it's definitely new to most of you. And it's about the personal reason of why I chose to work on openBIM for the infrastructure sector. Now, it is true that I'm going to talk to you about my personal yet professional, of course, information. But I would like you to make an effort while I talk to you today, which is I would like you not only to hear what I'm saying, but I would like also you to think at how useful the information I'm going to give you is to you. Okay? I'm going to give you a set of information about myself, and each time I give you a piece of data about myself, you think, how useful is this to me? All right, let's begin. First set of information, pretty simple. It's identity. I'm Xenia Fiorentini, 40 years old, and I live in Rome. Please, how many people find this information useful? Can you raise your hand? No, too many. Too many. All right, probably nobody finds that useful. Let's keep going and let's talk about a little bit of my background. I've been working on interoperability for the management of complex systems since basically the moment I went out of the university, which was more than 15 years ago, okay? And I like thinking of interoperability as a key success factor for the management of complex projects, because the more the complexity of a system, the more we can't think of one person or one organization taking care of everything, right? We do have several people, organizations, and companies that need to work together to make complex systems work. And that's where interoperability comes into place. And I made interoperability the mission of the company that I founded, which is called NGSys. Now, one of the first customers of NGSys a few years ago was RFI, and it still is, by the way, which is the Italian railway company that manages the Italian railways. And together with them, we started being a part of the buildingSMART community. I was honored to be part of several projects within the railway room, and eventually I ended up contributing to the steering committee of the railway room itself. Now, you've already heard about that. We are the organizers of a serious game that is going to happen these days, which is going to be on the first floor of this same building, where we have more than 50 participants among players, software vendors, coaches, judges, okay? We'll try to put things into action. So we're going to see how IFC 4.3 works in practice with specification, creation, and validation of IFC 4.3 models. All right, now back to the game that we played at the very beginning. You remember I've asked you how useful you found the information about myself, specifically my name. And almost everybody said, okay, I find this completely useless. But what I'm arguing here is that most probably, now that I've started connecting my personal identity with some more information about my background, my involvement in this community, my customers, the game that we are going to play, well, that same information, which is name and last name, basically, become a little bit more useful to everybody, all right? Now, the theory that stands behind it, which the theory of network externalities, is that utility of a data point increases with the number of data points to which it is connected. And this is, I've just shown it with my personal data, but if we think at the infrastructure sector, how many data points, how many connections can we think of within the infrastructure sector? We have heard this morning people talking about GIS, but that's just one of the connections that we can establish. We can think about sensor data. We can think about people behavior. We can think about weather. We can think of parts of the cities or the environment that are connected by our infrastructure. And that we can count basically endless data points that we can connect it. So the BIM model, which is just, let's say, a data point, where for data point I mean anything, an information container or a set of information, is quite useful within the infrastructure sector. Now, what I haven't told you about the network externalities theory is that the utility of something does not only depend on how much this something is connected, but it also depends on how much this something is expected to be connected. And that's the theory of expectations, by the way, that can be shown and demonstrated mathematically. So it is important that when we build a BIM model, for whatever reason, we anticipate also at what are the other data points that this BIM model is going to be connected to. Now, how does openBIM play a role within that? Well, I believe that openBIM not only allows that data point to be connected to other data points, okay, but it also increases the expectation of a BIM model to be connected in the future. So we are not thinking about the present only, but about the future as well. And eventually, providing data that are useful is what motivates me in working within the infrastructure sector. And this is the reason why I'm working for openBIM and I'm part of this beautiful community. I thank you for all the attention. And by the way, my name is Xenia Fiorentini.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And to our audience online, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And I'm Fung. I'm from the Hong Kong chapter. I'm an architect by profession. And before I retired from government, I was Deputy Director of Housing in Hong Kong, overseeing all the development work of public housing for 50% population in Hong Kong. And I have all sorts of professionals working with me. And after the new millennium, I can see our planners and land surveyors happily using GIS, whilst architects and engineers happily using BIM for the same project. And I said, what a waste of our resources. So I have a dream. My dream at that time is to integrate BIM and GIS for our projects, for optimizing design, development potential, use of resources, optimizing foundation design, structural design, providing passive design for our people with a very comfortable environment, allowing wind to penetrate, so on and so forth. And how do I do it? Because I have no idea how to do. So when I attended the Autodesk University in 2009, I told the then CEO, I have this dream. And there's no solution at that time. But at that conference, I met one guy who was very important. That is Dr. Kevin Kemp from Stanford University. And this story is about pioneers, about having dreams and meeting people. And then in 2010, I went to San Diego for the ESRI's GIS conference, user conference, and met the CEO, Jack Dingerman. And I told him my dream. And he said, you may try using IFC, industry foundation classes. So when we come back to Hong Kong, and I told my colleagues, let's try doing it through IFC and see how it works, and if it works. And with 2 years' time, my colleagues and some consultants work on that as R&D projects and successfully launched it for use for our projects for planning analysis since the year 2013 and 14. And probably we are one of the first, if not the first in the world, to have done it at that time. And by 2017, we have been adopting it for more than 80 projects already. But it was not until 2017 in November that Autodesk and ESRI announced the start of a new relationship to build a bridge between BIM and GIS mapping technologies. So time really flies. And we have been happily using it for so many years. And then in 2021, we can see ISO 26362 being the ISO for GIS and BIM interoperability. So pioneers, I would say, are dreamers, and getting people to work together and make things work. And then after retirement, I was still the chairman of the Committee on BIM for Construction Industry Council in Hong Kong, and coordinating the entire industry to adopt BIM. And in my capacity as chair of the Committee on BIM, Dr. Kevin Kemp brought me to Tokyo for the first time when I met the leaders like Patrick, and also at that time, it is also Richard, who was the CEO at that time, in Tokyo. So even though I know about IFC back in 2010, it's not until 2018 that I met the leaders of buildingSMART. And that gives me great impetus to bring openBIM to Hong Kong for use. So next, what do? We brought a delegation, 13-member delegation, attending BSI Summit in Düsseldorf. And the whole group come back and very elated and thought, yes, let's do it in Hong Kong. Let's form the Hong Kong chapter with CIC. But then disaster struck because CIC, being a public body, looked at the Articles of Agreement of buildingSMART and said they cannot be the Hong Kong chapter. So I got stuck. So what do? So my plan B is to get professional bodies to do it. So I talked to Hong Kong GIS Association, Hong Kong Institute of BIM, Hong Kong Institute of Civil and Building Information Management. And they all agreed to work together. So we formed the Hong Kong Alliance of Built Asset and Environment Information Management Associations. And then a small delegation then went to Helsinki in June and met the leaders again. And we start forming our organization and our chapter. At that time, David Fung said, IFC doesn't work. So after forming the association, we make him the chair of our committee on buildingSMART liaison. So that's how we make people work together. And then in October 2019, at the summit in Beijing, we are formally admitted as the Hong Kong chapter. So after being the chapter, we have to work. So in 2020, when we have COVID, everything is done online. So we have our virtual classroom with classes offered since 2020. And then we have buildingSMART's Professional Certification Foundation Program launched since 2021. By now, we have more than 400 qualified individuals. And we have now got a second trainer, apart from SBI, we also have BRE Shenzhen right now as the second provider. And then we also offer BIM and GIS training program, and then we have special events. So this is how we make people work together, learn together, and grow together. So how can we accelerate this adoption? So in 2022, we organized our own awards. And then after that, you can see we have an award winner in the Henderson project as well. So actually, this is the winning team, as mentioned by Susan earlier on. And they are the fast runners. And that's how they got it with this adoption of BIM. But I must say that they're still learning. So this is still at the development stage about BIM and GIS integration for project applications with all the pain points, the current measures, still studying, learning, and aspiration for the future. So, and we are building capacity for openBIM, openGIS, and also openCDE in Hong Kong, steadily, gradually, regularly, with bigger momentum as we bring more people together. And by the way, before I went to Beijing, I was attending a sustainability conference as a speaker in Ningbo, an international conference on sustainability. And I met some research fellows from the University of Hong Kong who told me that IFC doesn't work. So I said, okay, go to Beijing and let's look at it. And they all joined. And then by 2021, that team won the BSI International Awards for the professional research category. So that's why when people come here and work together, things will work. And then another project, which is another merit winner also by SBI, by Calvin's team. This one, they work with CDD and also Lens Department for also IFC, CGML, and also IDS to bring harmonization of the standards of BIM and GIS in Hong Kong for one particular area that is in the Northeast New Territories. So I hope this can be cascaded to a wider adoption by other areas or districts in Hong Kong, and also not only for public projects, but also for private sector projects. Right, so about, well, how can we build it that way? So this is how it works. It's one of the largest adoption of openBIM, openGIS, and IDS. Well, that's why I hope we can get more people to use it. But next, turning to the entire territory and private sector, can we work smarter and do more? So, biggest question, how can we motivate them to work? And I think, well, if the smart governments will work together and adopt openBIM in the processing of submissions and approvals, then perhaps that would be a good idea to do it. So this time, I hope we can build it through this IFC, International Friendship Club. So this time, this is the one that we have got it. Most of the delegates that we arrived in Rome yesterday work together. Big aspirations. I hope we can apply it through the entire value chain, also going beyond construction to logistics and financing as well. And going to the world, I hope we have openBIM, openGIS, open opportunities for everyone. And for sustainable development goals, we have, bearing in mind climate action, advancing net zero. We need trusted data, and we don't want data silos. So let's work together. Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you to our ladies. All of those presentations were amazing. It is really, really inspiring what they're doing. And I think what we have to realize is how much talent we have on the stage today. I think individually, they're all fabulous, but I think you'll agree what we've been talking about is collaboration. So together, collectively, what these women are achieving is really, really to be applauded. So once again, please do put your hands together to say thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to interrogate these ladies a little bit further into what they know. So actually, I think I mentioned earlier that we really want some key takeaways, some things that are going to mean things for you and your organizations that you can apply based on what they've achieved so far in the projects that they're working on. But firstly, Anna, I wanted to come to you. It's really fascinating to hear what you did in achieving in the setup of the buildingSMART chapter here in Italy. But really what I wanted to know is, what's been the most rewarding part of that for you, and how's that really improved the use of BIM in the region?
Yeah, I think that especially in Italy, we are very brilliant at individual level, and we need something to put together all these efforts, because we like to be inventors by each other. So buildingSMART was really challenging because we need to put together these brilliant people and try to keep them focused on the aim of achieving bigger results being together. And so I think we achieved in that through our working group, but also inviting people to work together, and many of people met thanks to IBIMI, and for instance, Xenia met Minucci, and they won the award. So I think that I am happy that we see the results. It was challenging because, as I said, we are not very focused usually. We like to see many things, but the results was very good. We are more than 200 now. We started with 5 people, so
I think the success of what we've got here today.
Yes, that of course, having all you here, it's really wonderful. And but you know what happens when you are in this kind of community, that you never know where you are, because you find the same people and say, well, where I am now. So we can see that we are in Rome because we have that, but otherwise we are like in a family. So wherever we meet, we feel at home.
Thank you. So I think also, I mean, commendment. It really has been amazing what you've achieved in the last few years. So congratulations for that. And I think one of the other things that struck out for me, Arisca, was all the work that you're doing at the airport. So what have you learned in the way that you're using data, and how are you applying that learning on your projects? Yeah.
I apologize. I think, wow, you're kind of catching me off guard right now. Like I mentioned, we have like a very structured data model right now, which really helps improve the data quality for the use of all of those different stakeholders that are involved. But at the same time, because we have so many parties involved, those are also still the challenges, which is the people getting them to work so that we get the right data for the use of asset management at airports. So one of the challenges that we have is when projects, for example, they need data to start a new project as a situation, and the quality is not really on the level yet that is needed to start a new project, which means that we're investing a lot of time and money in getting that data to the level that we need it to be for a new project. And then same thing, like when a design party starts, they're only still very much focused on their part of the chain. And what we're trying to do is get them to collaborate more, have the design parties talk to the construction parties so that they're gonna work together more so that the quality of the data will improve. So that by the time an asset owner needs it, it can be used for the right reasons. Think of compliancy reasons. We need the right data quality for certain compliancy issues if the government shows up. But at the same time, we have a lot of other parties who need the data literally when they're out in the field. The firefighters, for example, they need it as well. So we're really trying to use openBIM for improving the quality for that. And again, like I mentioned in my presentation, I think I have all the faith in the technique. There's a lot of people here that know how to develop new things, but we need to focus a little bit more on the people, because if the people are not going to start using it the way that we want to use it, we're going to continuously run into the same circle.
I think, Emma, you mentioned ISO earlier. Where does ISO fit in with that 19650 in terms of making sure we validate our data, but more importantly, how people understand to use it?
The governance part is critical to information management, because if you can't trust information, then we might as well all go home, really. And that's been a problem and still is a problem at the moment. I mean, in the standards, there's lots of processes with regards to assurance. So there's different levels from the information authors checking their work before it goes out to the clients then checking the information when they receive it. I mean, when I started out drafting, every time I did a drawing, I would get my manager to check it before it was sent out. Now we're creating huge sets of data and they don't get checked, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it. And if they don't get checked, then when they get used, clients are basing, organizations around them. If you think of an organization like a system, the information, the data is the input. And if that's not correct, then it can cause massive problems. Business decisions can be made off incorrect information, and all the sort of internal systems will be operating off it to manage the assets. So the whole governance piece really needs to be thought about. And then obviously with using open standards and more structured information, we have the chance to automate that. So things like IDS, for instance, are there to help us on that journey. Thank you.
And Xenia, I think what we need to think about, just taking a step back from that, is yes, we need good data. Yes, we need it to be validated to ensure that's accurate. But how do we collate that data in the first place? And what are you doing to ensure that that data is collated and managed well?
Well, when we collect the data, and we mostly talk about intelligent data or smart data, or we need to think, I believe, at three things mainly. The first one is we need to collect the data so that we can correctly interpret them. So the semantics of the data, we need to be able to understand them not only now, but later as well. The second thing is when we collect the data, we need to think and keep the context in which these data were created and then validated, because the context gives us hints at what this data could be used for in the future as well, and not only right now. I would say that the third point while collecting data is data quality. We have heard, of course, of the whole process of specifying and validating. Well, that kind of data quality allows us to rely upon the data that we collect, and thus take decisions on top of that. And I think that's the key of having a decision process that is data-based or at least data-enabled.
Thank you. And Ada, you talked about many ways of bringing collaboration together. From what we've just talked about in the last few minutes, how does data enable that collaboration, particularly in the examples that you gave us?
I think data interoperability is very important. How can we have different systems that can talk to each other and work together for a project, or from different stages, straddling different stages, from planning to design, and then from design to construction. So I think we need to have very clear standards that we can adopt. And that's why I always ask my team or colleagues to look for ISO first. So if we're not having that, let's try if we can get it somewhere and somehow.
And Riitta, I think what we've not touched upon yet, we've looked at the data, where it comes from, how we collect it, how we use it, but what technology really drives that? We're talking about BIM here, we're talking about digital construction. So where's the technology? Where does that fit in?
Well, I think that what I'm looking for the next level is this machine readable and automatically checking rules and things like that, that we put intelligent also for the data, with not just doing this kind of cross-checking that it's something in the different places or like that. We need different kind of databases and different kind of information needs combined to the IFC model and databases together, and this automatically checking for those for different kind of reasons, for sustainability, for issues of the healthcare process, for the pandemic, for things like that. And we have a huge databases. Not everything is coming from the IFC, but we can combine that with the machine readable data. And when we know what is inside and its requirement structures, we can know that we can also make this kind of searches in there and use the intelligence of that.
Before I move on to the next one, I just want to explore that a little bit further. Emma, from a technology side of things, what are you doing with your projects to incorporate the technology and the data together?
Yeah, so in terms of the technology side, because we, work in the information management side of things, we kind of, suppose, use technology quite differently because we're not actually delivering projects. So we're actually looking at using databases for information requirements at the moment. So what I'm doing at the moment is working for clients where I'm actually going through their existing documents and extracting information requirements and putting it into one database, so it's all together and it can be rationalized. Because what I'm actually seeing within organizations is that clients can have like 60 documents all containing different information requirements. They have actually no idea what their information requirements are at the moment. And with it being in one place, then we can then start to write the rules again to then be able to check the delivered information against those information requirements to validate and verify it. And then we're also looking at sort of more database approach to actually creating the process sort of information in terms of information management, so people know what to do and when. And then obviously we also do the checking processes as well, using technology such as Célibri, for instance, and writing the rules around all that. So yeah, that's kind of, I suppose, how we're using technology.
And Xenia, you're nodding. What would you add to that?
Well, I was thinking that how technology actually is an enabler of the processes. So when I hear my colleague, talking about technology and always the process and the people, so always these, let's say, three factors that work together: processes, people, and technology. And that is why I was, nodding at the speech, because in every point there were these three ingredients which are the key, and which are also, by the way, something that buildingSMART as a, collective community is working towards. So I think that's definitely the right direction.
And you mentioned, so Céline, Xenia just said people and technology together. Now, we all know that there's a huge skills gap within our industry about what we need and what we're actually using right now. So I think as an industry, we're all up to speed on what technology we need to be delivering, but do we have the necessary or the right amount of people in place right now to deliver that technology?
Obviously not. But I'm going to contradict myself here. I think ideally, we should not need education for openBIM. I know we're doing it right now, but ideally, all our standards and solutions, they should work in an integrated manner. For users, it should be very intuitive to use our standards and solutions, and things should be automated. And the same goes for the compliance part of what we do. So our certification should work like our standards and solutions do. And yeah, therefore, we need to innovate. And yeah, we're already planning to work towards the solutions in our strategic roadmap. But I think culturally, we need to change a little bit as well in order to achieve that as soon as we want to. And I believe as a community, we're a bit in a bubble. It's our collective task to reach outside of that bubble and get feedback from users or get input from users that are outside of our usual technical community, like asset owners and investors, the younger generation, healthcare specialists, and yeah, and also we have to change our communication a little bit, because we and I know many of you are very excited and passionate about our technical standards and solutions, but for a user, it should not be that relevant to know how it actually works. Users should just be able to intuitively work with our standards and solution, or press a button, and then in this ideal world, all these automated simulations come out of that. So there's work for us to do.
I think there's a lot of work to be done. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And Anna, I think one thing that struck out for me from what Céline said was culture and cultural change. Now, I'm sure you've witnessed a lot of that setting up the chapter over the last few years. What kind of cultural change do you think needs to come next?
First of all, I would like to add something what Céline just said, because I think that buildingSMART, the legs of buildingSMART are the chapters, because we are the only one that can bring these standards into the national market. Because here we always speak about big companies, but the majority of companies are very small, and they will never come to this meeting. They will not even follow through internet, because they have the day-by-day business. And I am speaking about at least 90% of the companies working in the building sector. So the role of the chapters is fundamental, while buildingSMART International is fundamental for the strategy for developing the standard. For the implementation, it's really important, the national chapters. And also the software houses. We have seen today two brilliant software houses, Italian software house, because they can take care of the local culture and what they need. So it's, as the model of the chapter is like the model of buildingSMART, so we have software houses, we have very small software houses within our chapter. And those are important because they can reach, again, the small enterprises as well as the small municipalities. And so I think that that is a really important role that we really need to understand. As chapter is not just translating something into a national language, but it's also translating the strategy in the national, and it's not so easy, especially like Italy, where we have 20 regions and 9,000 municipalities. So it's is quite complex. But anyway, in this community, we can learn each other. And so I think that we will find the solution as well as we work together and we have more women again, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ada, what would you like to add to that, obviously from that whole change perspective of how we bring education further and where we're closing those skills gaps?
Hello, can you hear me? Talking about education, I think I have a lot to say about that. 20 years ago, I was dreaming, maybe in 5 years' time, all students graduated with no BIM, okay? And I hope in 10 years' time about openBIM. But look at it, 20 years later, still the same. Graduates do not necessarily know how to use BIM. So I think education is a lot to move on. And we have to move the professors first as well. So how can we do that? Maybe to have for the openBIM, the training courses, to have one entry level before the foundation level is good. In Hong Kong, for CIC, have been advocating everyone, including those who do not use the model. Those like work of form on site to look at the model and then apply or make comments on it, use it. The senior directors, the bosses, don't need to build BIM, but let them know what is BIM. And I think something at entry level would be useful for make it a kind of popular education for everyone, just like learning a language or learning numbers. I think we need it for the entire world. Just like numbers, we have one set of numbers that everyone will use. Is common. Can we make openBIM, OpenGIS, OpenCDE along that format that everyone will use?
And Arisca, when you obviously did your education in the US and then came back to the Netherlands, how have you seen things have changed?
I think looking back at the US, my time in the US during my education, I actually had a professor, European professor, who was very much into the open way of working. He was mainly specialized in GIS and remote sensing. So that really triggered me as this opportunity, because this was back in 2009, 2010. And then I started working for a gas company in the United States, and we were still printing drawings from AutoCAD and then redrawing them into GIS. And so when I came to the airport and in Amsterdam, a whole new world opened up to me as in how we can work with openBIM. But what I learned from my professor really stuck with me of the opportunities what you have with openBIM. And coming back to the educational part, I don't think we should only focus on educating the students, but we also need to educate our organizations better. I mean, the slides from Leon, the reason why he gets out of bed each day, that's not something I can present to my management, because they will not understand what it is. So we have to also educate and maybe do some translation from the technical part to the business value of how it will actually benefit organizations like Schiphol. So we need to also educate the people that are working with it today or are new to it today, because like Céline said, it's something that's kind of everyone is starting to work with it, but I still see some challenges there. So we need to get more people involved. I agree the technical part is moving quicker than the organizational and the processes parts, and we need to get them aligned with each other in order for openBIM to really land within the organizations.
I think we're coming to our last 5 minutes. I know everyone's probably hungry and ready for their lunch, but what I'd like to do is just ask each and every one of you what comes next, what's the future? Arisca, let's start with you.
Next, it will be a hospital working group or a room, I hope that. And there will be a BIM event, hospitals, and there will be a BIM-based building process and new building law in Finland.
And Céline, how do we make the future today from an education perspective in a nutshell, quickly?
I think that we make the future today by inspiring people with the benefits that are already possible with our solutions, like automated simulations. For me, that is very inspiring, and I'm not a BIM expert still, but I believe that showing what's already possible, aside from IFC use and reference models, with very easy tools, you can make an energy simulation for a building, for example, and this is all automated, and you don't have to fill in any values yourself anymore, but it just comes out of the BIM model, and I think that is very attractive for everybody.
Thank you. And Xenia, where do we go from here?
I think I've already been talking about connections. So I think it's time we get, let's say, out of the bubble of our BIM models and start thinking at how we connect them to other things, such as GIS systems, ERP systems, SAP, data from sensor data, so that we arrive and we reach the view of having really, the connected digital twins. So let's get out of this bubble. We got beautiful IFC data that we can eventually get through our ISO processes. Fine. What do we do next? We connect them to the rest so that we can get the semantics, we can get the context, we get the quality we want, and we are able to take decisions upon them.
Emma, what have you got to add to that in terms of the longer term goal?
At the moment, we really need to connect everything up in terms of information management. So the management layer and the information layer, like I've shown on my slides, but also really sorting out, rationalizing and joining together the standards for the information layer, because that actually provides the foundations for everything we keep talking about in the future. Linked data, digital twins, AI, it will all operate off that layer. And if that's not, right, like any building with bad foundations, it won't, stand up over time. So for me, that's the main focus.
And Ada, what do you think the future looks like?
I think let's dream. Let's make more dreams for whatever you think should integrate together with all the systems that we have in place. We have to work and live in a connected world. So that's why I say it's not only our built asset industry. How about natural environments? How about logistics and even financing? How can we make things integrate and work together with all the data that we have gathered? Because nowadays we have green financing. We need green building assessment systems. And these must work together with all the systems we have, all data centers. Otherwise, it's of no use if they have to develop their own systems. So let's work together. And also logistics is another one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we don't have time for another topic right now. Logistics can be tomorrow's talk. And Arisca, just a few final words from yourself.
I think everything has been said, but yeah, I agree with basically everyone has been saying. Focus on asset lifecycle management and how can we use the knowledge that we have here within buildingSMART on openBIM and apply it to the way people are working today, and primarily focusing on the collaboration throughout the entire supply chain.
Thank you. I think, Anna, if we come to you for the final word.
I want to say that as chapter, I would like to work more on the exploitation of the results that these brilliant people are achieving. And we will start tomorrow afternoon with the European chapter, because we are in Europe. And I hope that this can be replicated in other part of the world, because I think that we all have a very good example of exploitation, and if we join our effort, we can improve our strengths toward the politician and toward the clients and toward the professionals.
Thank you. And thank you all. I think this has been a fascinating talk, and I'm sure everyone hopefully has at least one thing to take away, like I asked you to think about at the start of our presentation. So thank you to each and every one of our panelists, and thank you for listening, and enjoy your lunch. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. One of them's working. I'll put the other one down. Thank you very much for that session. That's really inspiring, and I really appreciate all the contributions from each and every one of you. So thank you, and I hope the audience also learned a little bit about some of the work that's being done there as well. Got one final thing before lunch. We mentioned earlier about a principal member that was signed up, and we're really delighted to welcome up just before lunch with Dr. Adrian Wildenauer from SBB. I'd just like to ask him a couple of questions up here and get his thoughts and impressions on the last session as well, but really around some of the topics that came up here around owner-driven mandates and IFC. So Adrian, just come up here a second, and I'll just, before we break for lunch, just get a couple of thoughts from you around... No pressure.
So thank you very much. As Aidan already said, just a few thoughts. I'm in a very unthankful position before lunch, so I keep it very short, so no worries. But I just wanted to grab up one thing. It was from Evandro. I can't see him because of the light. He mentioned that the Roman Empire built roads. I'm sure they would have built railways if they would have known it before. So, but just sorry. So we decided for the principal membership because next year is getting very, very important for the Swiss market. We start tendering with the first projects around 100 of every size in IFC. And as I've heard before, all software vendors are already ready. So I think that's true because I haven't seen all of them. So we are delighted to announce that next year in July, the first 100 projects covering IFC 4.3 will start in Switzerland. So, but that's not the end. That's just the start. There's more to come, and yeah, a standard is never finished, as I've heard from somebody before. So I'm very much looking forward to work in the principal membership for SBB, for Switzerland, and buildingSMART International. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, that leads us to lunch. So thank you very much once again to the speakers here on this panel. That was really interesting. Thank you, Marie, for helping to make this happen and all your efforts there, and thanks to the audience. So we're now breaking for lunch. We have brilliantly come back in on time, which is often a great relief to the event organizers. And we will now provide lunch. Please note that it's to your right as the audience. It's to my left, out this way where Dan is waving. That is the lunch area. So please now do that, and we'll be back in an hour. Thank you all.